Hi. Let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Should probably away from it. I'm gonna keep this on to see if Ross joins. Instagram. So how can I put this here maybe? Probably just like literally busted everyone's eardrums. Can you hear me, Claire?
Hi. What are you doing?
Oh my gosh, they're recording. People are going to be like, we're never getting on a live thing again.
We'll just tell them that we've literally known each other since we were like 5, so they can get it.
Sally, can you hear me? I think I'm trying to see. Claire, can you see who's all on the Zoom?
Just Sally.
Sally, okay. So what we're gonna do, guys, is I'm gonna put on Instagram too. You guys can do it however you want. I'm letting Jake just kind of take over. Hold on, let me get on Instagram. But we are gonna record it because a couple people couldn't do 7 p.m. So I'm gonna record it for them.
Nice.
But let me get on Instagram too. And we'll start. Like I literally came home, immediately got into my sweats and sweatshirts. Told Jake, have fun. Okay. Reverse. Okay, so we're on Instagram too. So I have Instagram, and then I have right here on Zoom. Instagram, obviously we can't record, so if you are wanting to see this later, if you need to come back, hi Tiffany. Hi Bethany. Bethany, we have Claire on Zoom. Claire, can you say hi to Bethany?
Hey, Beth.
I don't know if she can hear us.
She can hear us.
But I'm going to leave Jake to do what he does better than me, myself included. So he's going to probably be with you guys for about 45 minutes to an hour. I uploaded the recipe onto Facebook. So if you want the recipe that he's going to design and help you guys demonstrate, that is on Facebook. Hi, Bethany. Claire Bethany said, what's up? But this is something that I always talk about, prep one time a week and live a healthy week throughout the 7 days. So this is a dish that you guys can prep. Jake will let you know how much servings it yields, and hopefully you guys can use it for the remainder of the week. So if this is like a prep Sunday, this is a dish that you guys can use throughout the week. World cuisine. So I will let him take over. Again, Zoom, I will record it. So Sally, Claire, if you say anything silly, just know it's going to be recorded and probably on YouTube later. And then this is my husband, Jake. Jake, can you say hi?
Hey, Ro.
All right, it's all you. Rock out. All right, bye, guys.
Right now I'm just doing a little bit of prepping, so just bear with me for about 8 minutes tops. You can definitely be inclusive. Like I said, you can go on Facebook and find the recipe on there. As if you have the items already, it would be a good time to, let's see. So right now I'm putting things in mason jars. It's really cool because they have measurements on the side, which are very important, especially if you're trying to stay tuned to a recipe and you're not just throwing things together. It allows you to be a little bit more accurate and also more controlled with your process. So here I have the walnuts and coconut flakes. I also added a few extra spices to this blend that will be made, which is going to be a walnut butter. And it melts really well at the end of the recipe, more so when the vegetables are starting to condensate. You can literally add this to it at the end and it will start to melt and really just mimic that of which a cream cheese would be, but I added some mustard seeds to it as well just to give it some extra spice. So that's just what I'm doing right now, and like I said, this will take roughly 8 minutes, and then I will get started and have everything set up and we'll get underway. The recipe total takes roughly 45 minutes. I would say on a very smooth base process, but again, we're just trying to gain more knowledge in the kitchen, which will allow you to be better on your own, and also be able to take control of your kitchen so you don't have to eat out all the time. And when you do eat out, you can have more of a knowledge of quality ingredients is what my main purpose in this culinary life is to make people hold the restaurant industry responsible and give you good quality ingredients. So things should be fresh, things should taste well done, and not just thrown together without any flavor, which I think takes out of the culinary experience. And we need to come back to the point of understanding that food is important, and not just is it something that you eat, but maximizing your nutrient capacity is really huge in creating vitality. So this is Vital Source, and that's my purpose in culinary. So bear with me for 8 minutes. I just spilled on for a little while. So. Oh, you brought your other toy out? Very nice, Susie. Very nice. You can't see this is Susie making a grand introduction, and she wanted to let me know she's kind of annoyed for not paying attention to it. She hasn't played with that toy once, and right now it's starting to destroy it along with that. So we're going to get started, and if you can't see, these are the ingredients that I'll be using. We have walnuts with coconut flakes, Himalayan salt, and mustard seeds. We also have a wild rice blend, which we'll be cooking in the process of everything that is going on. So your rice will be simmering at a low temperature, so you can not only just prep this vegetable medley, but you can also apply your attention to other needed areas, along with blending up, like I said, both of these two blends, which is the pumpkin seed and date blend. So I will be moving this screen around quite frequently if need be. So starting off, I think it's really important to maximize your capacity in the kitchen, which means that you're taking full advantage of time. And time is really important. And one reason as to why a lot of people don't like cooking is because there's a lot of things that are moving around, which pulls your attention away. Not only does it pull your attention away, but it's really hard to move around and make the most of your time, which can be kind of discouraging in the kitchen. So we're going to maximize time and also be able to increase capacity in the kitchen. So first and foremost, I'm using purified water so we can start to bring it to a simmer. And allowing that to happen, you can add the rice in once it begins to heat up, and you can just leave it alone while you're doing all the other tasks that need to be done in the kitchen. So I'm starting off by adding roughly 24 ounces of water. I'm just eyeballing it, just so you know. But if you want to be a little bit more accurate, just remember when you add any type of starch to water, it's going to pull moisture. With that being said, you're also going to lose a lot of moisture due to the evaporation process of water. So remember to add roughly twice as much water as you do to the component that's being placed in the pot or can. You can't go wrong by adding too much water because at the end of the day, you can pour it out and strain it out of your finished product fish. So we're going to put that on, and once I find this top, I'm going to put the top back on as well so it can heat up a little bit faster. Also, another component that I'm going to be using is a NutriBullet. I had to look. I have two different brands, and I had to make sure I was calling it the right name. But this is an essential component to any type of culinary experience. It might not be the top of the line blender, but for $100, it can maximize your potential from doing everything from smoothies to nut blends to making your own dips. I mean, the amount of capacity that this has is endless. Even just chopping up your vegetables, if you want to do a quick chop on something such as kale, cilantro, parsley, easily put it in the blender and just pack it tight, and then it will easily chop it up for you, which can reduce time if you're going for something of a salsa or that type of condiment accessory. So that will be used later once I do a little bit of chopping up with these vegetables, but just bear with me. really tore that up. All right. So just curious if anybody has their audio on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Sally has her arms on mute, but that's okay. So these are going to be the main ingredients that will be used. I'm using morel mushrooms, which I found in the woods not too long ago. I also have rosemary set out, basil, 2 bell peppers. They can be of any color variety, but I like to grab peppers that have sunlight in addition to them. Those red spots or orange sparks normally are literally just sunspots. The easiest way to describe it. I have 1 sweet pepper or sweet onion, and then 2 zucchini, and in these jars I have dates along with pumpkin seeds, and this will be blended up at the end, more so like a topping that I like to add to the mushrooms as well. As stated before, this is a wild rice blend. You can use any strain of rice. There's multiple varieties out there, but that wild rice are more on the seed variety, so it allows for better digestion and processing within the stomach. We have walnuts, which are great for omega-3s. There's so many benefits to walnuts, and they're one of a kind. There aren't really too many nuts that have as much nutrient capacity as they do. I also have Himalayan salt in there as well. Mustard seeds, which is great for digestion, the gut biome, and then also creating a respiratory effect in the body, which will naturally just increase vitality. The coconut meat, which is also known as coconut flakes, is also a great fat addition. I have coconut aminos as well. It can definitely mimic something such as soy sauce, but it's the extraction agave from the fermentation of coconuts. Next, I'm going to be using coconut oil as my main oil. As stated, there's a good saturation of fat that the human body needs, not only for joints and lubrication, but also it increases the lubrication of the brain, which is really important when we're talking about oxidation. All the foods right here are meant to help your body function properly and also maximize its nutrient capacity. So during this process, we're going to be cooking with low heat, which is going to be covered up, and it allows for the moisture that comes out of the vegetables to withstand in the cooking process, which will allow for a dual aspect of cooking. So you're not just scorching with high heat, which reduces the nutrients in it, but you're also reducing the amount of oxidation that happens by withholding the moisture within the food. So some people don't like steamed food, but we're not going with the full steam method, which will be more so of putting food in water. But we're still using oil to cook, which gives it that slight umami taste, which most people enjoy about food products is the fat that it's covered with. It's not more so of one food is better than the other, but more so about the oils that are added to it. So we have a huge palate variety on our tongue, and the main thing that attracts our attention and makes us come back for more is salt and umami, which is fat. So this dish will include all of that, and I also am using as my sweetener honey. I think honey is also an amazing antibacterial. and also increases longevity within the body and the respiratory system. So those are the ingredients that we'll be using. I'm going to be cutting this stuff up right after I add the rice as the water started to boil. I'll show you that. This is typically what you want to see. You want to start seeing steam, small bubbles forming at the bottom. At that time, you can turn the heat down to a very low setting. I would like to say 1. It depends on what type of stove you have. If you have a gas stove, very, 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 very low heat, because gas is going to burn definitely a little bit differently than an electric stove will. Electric stoves also heat up really fast, so it's very variant when you're talking about turning down an electric oven versus turning down a gas oven. Gas is definitely more controlled. Electricity, anything between 1 and 4 is still going to cause a lot of heat to be produced. So that's what we're going to work with, is putting this down as low as possible. At this point, I like to add a little bit of salt and a little bit of the seasoning to the water so it extracts properly and also incorporates into the rice. Like I said, it's a starch, so it pulls moisture in. It also pulls flavor in. You can taste bland rice, and there's a huge difference in having flavor added to the rice. Like I said, it expands, which means that it's taking in. So I'm going to put this Instagram phone down for a little while I add the rice to the bowl. Along with, I'm adding a little bit of rosemary to the water as well, so it can more so start to steep and extract its flavor and its constituents and not burn it, and then add it to the rice incorporation as well. That's something that I did not add to the instructions online, but it's still important to do. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a lot of things that I like to do for my own food, and you're more than welcome to, as you start to expand your knowledge, by just increasing the amount of things that you add to it. And this is about your flavor and your profile. So increasing that and doing the things that you like is going to make your cooking experience very enjoyable. And at the end of the day, you know it's something that you had a hand in doing. So bear with me. No, I'm still on. So I just added the entire jar of rice. I put about 10 ounces. And in measurement capacity, it might be a lot more in terms of weight, but I'm also adding the rosemary, and I'm adding the whole thing as well. I'm detaching the leaves off of the stem, but I'm also adding the stem to it, as there's huge benefits that actually supersede the leaves, because everything starts from the stem and the roots. So I'm also adding that as well. I'm not adding the entire thing, but I will break off a portion of the stem just to increase the capacity. And at the end of it, the stem is practically unedible. But you can also clip this little end off, such as that, drop it in some water, and you can start growing your own rosemary just right past one of the nodes, which is really cool. Keep some of the leaves on, allow them to take in some sunlight, and you can start growing your own rosemary in extreme capacity. So this Y-shaped portion is what I'm going to add into it, and I'm going to cover that back up right after I grab some salt and add that to the water as well. And personally, I'm going to drop a little bit of black pepper in there as well. Black pepper is amazing for respiratory and internal cleansing as well. It's one of the most ancient seeds that's been around and been used in culinary for that reason is due to not only the flavor that it increases, but also just the medicinal effects that it has as well. Me personally, I like to add black pepper flakes, but or red pepper flakes, but Caitlin's palate does not like hot stuff, so I typically add a lot of the hot flavor aromatics and at the very end. And if you have somebody in your house, just remember that you're cooking for multiple people, and you could definitely ruin a dish for that person's experience by adding something that they don't like, and you create a world of disaster, because at the end of the day, you don't want to have somebody have an unenjoyable experience. So while this is being covered up and put back in, we're going to start prepping. So typically, when I prep, I like to start by doing the least leaching vegetable, fruit, whatever it might be, first on the cutting board. What that means is cutting an onion, cutting mushrooms on a cutting board, it leaves a slight residue, and it also incorporates into the other fruits and vegetables. For this process, everything's going to be going into the same skillet, so I'm not really too worried about it, but still, cutting onions on the board can definitely cause the board to be slippery, as it's one of the water-dense vegetables that is going to be on here. So I'm going to save this one for last, along with the mushrooms last as well. So starting off, I'm cutting the zucchini, the top of it off. By the top, I mean you should be left with that. And me personally, since it's just for me cooking for myself, I do like to keep good cuts, but at the end of the day, I like 1/4 inch cuts because it allows for everything to be done very easily, allowing for fast cook time and also even cook time as well. I'm pretty sure online I have 1/4 inch cuts, which is, or maybe 1/2 inch cuts, which are slightly larger, but I'm just doing what's feels comfortable to me, and that's the main thing. Cut accordingly. You don't have to cut into perfection, but just remember, you want to increase your experience, and having good knife cuts allows for a better cooking experience, not only for the item that you're preparing, but also in terms of skillet and cooking capacity. So I'm going to start by cutting them in half, slicing them each down the middle. You should be left with 2 half portions. 1/4 inch cut. You're going to cut one more time, and you're really left with just 3 pieces now. At that point, you can easily line one up at a time. If you want to, cut. Some of your pieces come out larger. Remember that you're working with different size produces. So as stated before, you're not in a Top Chef competition, but still you should be left with some pretty decent cuts, such as this. Just remember to clean your cutting board off, as your cutting board is your place of preparation. The more clutter that you have on it, the harder it becomes to navigate and move around. So just remember, it's pretty cool to operate when you have space. typically I don't use this table to cut or prep on, but just for demonstration purposes, have something that's a little bit more level so you can maximize your cutting capacity and you don't have to lean over. As posture is something that's really overlooked in the kitchen. You want to have good posture. Typically, every single time that you move around, there's a lot of injuries do happen in the kitchen that never get reported, and people just go along with their lives. But it can take a toll on your body, having an arch back, not keeping good posture as far as your feet width. It maximizes your capacity in terms of preparation and also cooking and longevity in the kitchen. Also, keeping good fluid wrist motion is something that you want to have as well. When you're cutting, remember that this is not a good cutting motion, as it does damage your carpal area of your hand and also your forearm, and it definitely does a lot of damage in terms of just wrist mobility. So you want to take your finger off of there, and if it's uncomfortable, at least cut like this so you can have control over your knife, or you can even choke up on your knife, which I would definitely recommend if you're having a sharp knife, until you get more comfortable with whatever knife you're working with. So just remember to do that, and you can cut in a motion that's slicing through versus pushing down, as you want to guide the knife through and not mash the knife through. This is a sharp edge. You should be able to slice through pretty efficiently with a motion like this versus like this. You create a lot of non-mobile mechanisms that's it's not geared. Your wrist is not geared to move in a motion like this with creating pressure and leverage. So this is a more guided motion. As you can see, it's like a wave versus like this. It's like rocking of a boat. As stated, this prep time should take roughly 20 minutes once you become comfortable with cooking and just cutting more so efficiently. Next is the pepper, and have control over the fruits and vegetables that you cut, because you don't want to lose your grip and risk slicing open your finger, your hand, whatever it might be, missing the cutting board and hitting the artery. So keep control over it, and there's normally a balance point on each fruit and vegetable that you can easily rotate it around and move it as properly. For instance, this pepper, you slice one side off, and you can easily slice each additional side by placing it on its side, and then also cutting open the bottom, saving the seeds if you want to regrow them in your garden. They sprout pretty rapidly in that shape. So we're going to do both of these prep first. You want to kind of keep even cuts, so when it is in the pan, you're not left with some things cooking at a different time basis than the other. So that's the main importance of when I mean everything cooking evenly. As if you have, say for instance, a bigger produce piece, and you have a smaller produce piece, one of them is going to cook faster than the other, and it can definitely throw off your cook times, especially when we're talking about vegetables that do have a very fragile and delicate life capacity in terms of maximizing their nutrients. So we want to maximize nutrients is the main purpose of when we're talking about a vegetable-based eating regimen. For the onion, it's a rounded shape, so I like to start off by cutting either the top or the bottom, so you can have an even place to cut on, as you don't want the ball rolling around while you're trying to cut it, because you can damage yourself, as stated before. Cut that bottom portion off. I'm going to just go ahead and cut the top portion off as well. And remember, onions have that first layer that needs to be peeled off, as you can see, and it's sort of like a rolling tape. You take that portion off, peel it off, and you continue to peel it off until you get to your first portion that is, in my consideration, edible. As you can see, this is very leathery, and it's not really appetizing when we're talking about eating. I'm going to leave this for something of later use. I'll probably end up blending it up to make a salsa later on this evening. But this is an uneven cooking piece, and it can cause a lot of distraction for your cutting process. So easily, all we're going to do is end up slicing long ways. You can do width ways if you want to, but I've already cut it in an uneven portion. So the best method that you can use is to cut it lengthwise. And we're going to start. Remember, onions cut very easily, and the faster you rock with your knife, the more strength that you apply without measurement to the preciseness, which means you can easily cut yourself by not moving your fingers out the way, because we're talking about a very delicate, water dense vegetable such as the onion, and you can really damage yourself really quickly if you aren't careful with onions. Some people might have problems with their eyes watering up, but hey, there's I don't know what to tell you. Some people wear goggles. I mean, I think it's pretty hilarious, but it's definitely very therapeutic as well, as it works with tear ducts, which can increase, your eye lubrication. As you know, there's definitely a lot of baggage up as we visually take in life on an everyday basis. We have pollutants that go through our eye. So allowing your tear ducts to work is not the worst thing possible. Just don't rub your eyes after you cut onions. And I'd advise washing your hands after, as it does leave a lingering effect. And you can forget and touch your eyes, and that's just like bad news all over, as you won't be able to see for quite a few minutes after that. So right now I'm just washing my hands. All the vegetables are prepped properly. And right now I'm going to add a nice little seasoning blend to it, along with some oil as well. This is the last bit of my avocado oil that was also not listed, but I didn't go out and purchase any sunflower oil due to limited reasons. But all the last they are reasons. But more so for this purpose, we're going to be using coconut oil. And coconut oil, as stated, it's definitely able to handle an extreme amount of heat, which is important, especially if we're talking about first-time basis cooking, and not just first-time basis, but just all-around cooking. It's one of the most purest oils that you can use, and it could withstand everything from low heat temperature to high heat temperature. So it's my go-to oil, and it also tastes amazing, especially when you add a little bit of Himalayan or even sea salt to it. It definitely is as close as you can possibly get to butter. As stated, when we're talking about animal products, and especially something such as butter, the main thing that people are attracted to in the foods is the salt and the fat. So we're looking in the back here, there's 14 grams of fat, 12 grams of saturated fat. We're talking about saturation. That's what coats the tongue and leaves the effect of umami, which is practically everlasting throughout the meal. And that's the biggest palate receptor that you have outside of salt in terms of like enjoyment. We think of sweet, salty, and sour, but those aren't really that common in terms of like food preparation. But one thing that people never leave out is fat. And they use clarified butter, but even when they use clarified butter, they still add salt to it, so it really just pops. So right here with coconut oil, you can increase your arterioles by not allowing coagulation from the platelets sticking due to clogged arteries, as it's very hard for the body to digest lactate and just a lot of the dairy components that we take in on an everyday basis. Not saying that you can't, but there needs to be a moderation that's done when we're talking about fat and adding fat to the diet. So I'm going to just take a spoon real quick. Make sure all the vegetables are medleyed up. And truthfully, with those 2 zucchinis, 2 bell peppers, and 1 onion, I roughly have close to 4 pounds of fruits and vegetables right here, or more so vegetables. I'm going to drop a little bit of salt in there, which just increases the flavor profile of every single thing that's in here. And I added about 1 tablespoon. 1 tablespoon is plenty enough, as it would just increase the flavor. As we all like flavor in food. It's simple as that. Can't be too concerned about your salt when you're using proper salt. Iodized salt, you just must be conscious about the things that you eat and kind of be more as natural as possible. Iodized salt goes through a chemical process It also has anti-caking agents in it. I mean, that's the type of stuff that you can eliminate out of your life that reduces your medical bills. It reduces a lot of the extra baggage that comes along with simple enjoyment, you know. Hold these places accountable who are making these foods to, you know, use better quality ingredients. Ask them what type of salt they're using, because it has a detrimental effect not only on you but your family, people who are collaborating with you, your friends, you know. So this is what the finished product should look like in terms of preparation. I turn this extra light on real quick so you can see on a visual basis a little bit better. So in this step, I'm going to end up starting one of the two skillets. One I'm using cast iron, and the other one I'm using a stainless steel, which for vegetables, I do like stainless steel a little bit better. It doesn't leach into the vegetables, so you get a really good cooking flavor without any true leaching. Copper is the best, as it doesn't leach any components, and I mean, but copper pans, they're not really that cheap. You can see the rice is cooking so slow that it's allowing you to have time to do what we just did. You know, you don't want to be rushing around worrying about if you're about to scorch your rice. You know, this rice is cooking so evenly, and it smells so good because it's releasing the rosemary, salt, and even the natural components of just the rice itself. It just smells good. So it's incorporating all those flavors, and it's releasing that starch out of it, as we'll drain this water at the end, so you're just not taking in that extra saturation of starch that you really don't need. So turning on the heat, I'm going to do the stainless steel for the vegetables. Turn it on to low. I'm using a setting of 3. For the cast iron skillet, as it's definitely more dense, I'm turning that one up to mid 4 to 5 range, and I'm going to be coming back over with the coconut oil to add to the pan, and more importantly, I'm adding it to the pan of vegetables so it doesn't cause a scorching, and the fat that's going to be put into the pan is going to take away a lot of the heat that will damage your vegetables and cause for extreme loss of nutrients. So like I said, we're trying to increase the capacity of the foods that you eat and also increase the flavor, as you don't want charred vegetables. I know it might sound great, a kebab on the grill, but you're throwing high heat onto something that's delicate. I mean, your skin is so soft. These fruits and vegetables are also soft and delicate. I mean, you see what would happen to your body if you even open the grill and just put your hand in front of it, and you see how long it takes to cook meat on the grill. Just imagine the amount of nutrients it's lost. It's practically no point in eating the vegetables, scorching with high heat. So we're keeping that one to moderately low. I'm coming back and putting oil in that pan. This pan is also going to be used for the mushrooms, as a mushroom is straight protein, dense nutrients, as that can withstand and absorb a lot of heat without reducing the amount of nutrients that's in it. It has a much higher burn rate capacity that it can withstand. So coming back in a few seconds. I'm adding 1 tablespoon to each. You see in the pan, the oil is easily able to move around pretty freely. Same thing also applies to the cast iron. It moves around really easy. At this point, can turn both the heats down to 1 as the vegetables will be added first, and then we're going to end up prepping the mushrooms to be chopped up and also start cooking as well. As stated, this recipe should take you less than 25 minutes in total of prep time, and then roughly 10 minutes in terms of like cooking time when we're talking about once you become efficient in this recipe. Starting off, I'm going to add a little nice amount of vegetables. You know, you don't want to overcrowd a pan, but for this process, you want to keep a lot of moisture in and also allow for even cooking. So with that being said, turning the heat down to 1, you're really doing minimal damage to it, and you're keeping the heat to a controllable temperature, which will just allow for the maximum capacity of nutrients. All this stuff is raw, so I mean, if you don't even want to cook it, you can keep it completely raw and add a marinade to it, something such as vinegar or oil, and I mean, this could easily be a salad for your day. You know, all this extra fruits and vegetables that you have. You can drop some pineapple in here, chop it up in the blender, and then you have something such as a ceviche, which would be amazing, or even a cucumber salsa type of dip. And you can do a lot of really maximizing nutrient things. Add some extra seasoning on it, add some avocado, some hummus to this bowl, and then you easily have a extreme nutrient-dense melody salad. Truthfully, you can add all those nutrients that I'm about to add into the blender, such as the dates, pumpkin seeds, walnuts, and coconut, and just simply add that to the dish as well. And then you have a completely raw salad, which would 100% maximize the nutrients, and you would take in practically no waste because your body would be doing most of the waste reduction for you, as it's taking in just raw nutrients. It would expedite a lot of the processing that needs to be done. Versus cooking. Cooking is definitely amazing, but as stated, it's a flavor profile that we have come to enjoy, and it's not a wrong process, but these are vegetables, and remember, they're very delicate. So I'm putting this pan to the side, or this bowl to the side, putting the top back on the rice, and the top back on the vegetables. And you can see them start to build up steam immediately. So just remember, the oil is a key component if you're going to be cooking vegetables on the stove. And don't be afraid to add too much oil when you're talking about cooking vegetables. Next, I'm going to be doing the mushrooms. And for this purpose, I'm only going to use a few. Me personally, I'm using 3, and saving the rest for later. As stated, mushrooms are very protein dense, and it is definitely good for building muscles, but we don't want too much protein in the body, as it's a definitely agent that certain ailments in our body absorb and love protein, and it's a muscle building strand. So it's the same thing. If you have a foreign agent that's in your body that's trying to cause damage to any part, you know, it's going to look for things as well that it's going to increase its duration and capacity. And protein and folate and iron are one of the things that a lot of the free radicals in our body definitely gear and lean towards to try to use them against us, you know, in our benefit. So for mushrooms, doing some simple cuts. Like I said, these are, depending on what you have, shiitakes are some of my favorite, but I'm not using those currently. I'm using some morels, which are super flavorful. I'm just doing some circular cuts. This is all just for aesthetics. You can do a quick chop if you want to. But mushrooms just cut so easy, and most mushrooms have more protein density and definitely have more neurological capacity agents than any meat that you're going to buy, or even fish on the market. And there's so many different brands and varieties and strains that you can just maximize and use to a high extent. So embrace mushrooms. I think they're definitely overlooked, but they pack so much flavor. I know when I was in culinary school, I'd always ask the teacher if he could grab me some mushrooms, and so he'd go into the fridge, or he'd walk over to the next classroom, or walk down the hall and find me some mushrooms. and I think a lot of the culinary teachers love when people maximize their palate, because I think we've definitely become too stricken on one size fits all. So for these mushrooms, I'm going to immediately add them as the next step in the process, and the finalized process is just going to be blending these up, which is going to be really quick, as practically everything's done cooking already. The rice, I'm going to turn the heat up to a relatively higher temperature just to increase its capacity and reduce the cook time, as these are going to be the best portion of the dish, and they're going to be reducing down slightly and also absorbing the nutrients, as mushrooms also absorb fat as well. So I have a flipboard cutting board as one of the ingredients that the recipe calls for is basil, and I'm going to add the basil to both of these blends and then keep them both raw, as both of these components will be raw additions that will be added to the dish. And I'm going to bring my blender over here just so I don't have to move around that frequently. And at this time, you can go back and check any of the items that you have cooking. I'm going to stoop down because they're also doing a zoom. At this point, you can go down and check any of the nutrients that you have cooking, from the mushrooms to the rice, and you can adjust the temperature as you see fit. As stated, some people have gas stoves and other people have electric stoves. So we really want to be cautious of not allowing things to burn at a rapid rate. So we're controlling the temperature, as that's the main point of this entire cooking process, is to not burn and scorch things. So I just checked on the vegetables. The vegetables are coming along well, but I'm turning down the heat on the mushrooms so they can just reduce down, and like I said, keep that moisture in, as they are moisture protein dense portions of the vegetable family, as they are very moisture ridden. They don't want to lose their moisture, so I'm adding that fat to it so it stays all in there. So The first component that I'm going to do is going to be this walnut and coconut butter blend. And like I said, it typically just melts. So we're going to take the entire components, dump them in the blender. Evenly shake them around. I say I'm adding a little bit of basil to both of the blends. Lastly, I'm just taking the walnuts, dumping in the components. Setting that aside until I finish up this blend. You can keep the same nutrients in there as well. You can keep the nutrients in there as well, as it's just walnuts and coconuts. If you have allergy reactions, I don't think that that's pretty common, but you know, just dump the seeds in. And I like to add a large portion of the seeds in, as those need to chop up before the dates. The dates can definitely stick to the blades and cause for a non-even spinning process. Finishing off with the rest of this basil. And for this coconut dish, it's practically very finely chopped. There might be some bigger nuts in there, but that's not a problem. You know, it's just going to make a more flavorful crunch to your finished product. But you want this to turn into a butter. As you can see, when you put it up against the side, it almost turns into a paste. And once you add more moisture to it, it will turn into a better consistency, in my opinion, than most peanut butters that are on the market right now. So I'm going to add a little bit of coconut aminos to it, increase that flavor. Add a little bit of coconut oil to it. My personal preference, a little bit of nutritional yeast, as it's going to really mimic something such as a cheese type of flavor profile. And we're just going to blend that up, move it around. We really want to incorporate that flavor. As you can see, you can literally put it into a ball such as that, and it really just melts on practically anything that you put it to, especially when we're talking about heat. As you can see, it literally just starts to paste up to the bowl, and that's the finished product that you'll be left with. And typically, you don't use the same spoon, but it's going in the same dish. And this really turns into something that can be actually done for a really quick snack. Just pistachios, pumpkin seeds, and a little bit of coconut oil and dates. And there you have a travel snack that can easily be turned into a quick meal replacement as well. It's also very flavorful. For this process, I'm going to add a slight bit of honey to it. Just to give it that extra stick. This should be the consistency. As I said, this is going to be a topper. And you can keep the seeds whole if you want to, but I like for things to be processed a little bit to reduce the amount of work that my stomach, my salivary enzymes, and anything that you have to do in terms of digestion. You don't want your body working harder just to eat. So we're trying to reduce the amount of work that your body has to do just to eat, and also maximize the nutrients. As things are broken down, it reduces the amount of capacity that your body has to do just to extract. So if we can chop up and make your stomach work a little bit easier, then why not do that? So right now, this date and pumpkin seed is literally into a consistency of a ball. Like I said, it can be turned into a really quick snack. I just added honey to it. You can add other nutrients to it as well, such as berries, nuts, and extra seeds. And you literally have a really quick to-go snack just right there. So So the last step that we're going to be doing, and everything is finishing up, is simply draining off the excess water, and you will be left with a very, 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 very floral smelling rice, and it's also very soft. You want to keep a little bit of extra moisture in there, not completely drained off. But at this point, we're just going to keep the top off, and any extra water that's in there will steam off and evaporate. Ensure that everything's turned off. I like to clean up, but just for time's sake, we're not going to. I'm going to do that afterwards. But here's the finished product on what your food should look like. You can see just the brightness, just in the colors alone of the vegetables, and how much water and moisture is actually still left within there. I mean, you're still able to have moisture in your vegetables, which, as stated, that's the main purpose that we want. On top of that, you can add this nut butter to the actual blend. Such as this. You simply just add it in, and it will literally start to melt. I mean, it literally melts. And it's a nice coater. Stir it around. And I'm about to plate this. So first, what I like to do, add about an ounce of rice. That was roughly 3 ounces, but keep on moving. Next, I put mushrooms on it. Next, we're going to add a large portion of vegetables, you know. And I'm truthfully going to add a little bit of extra walnuts, coconut and basil to it as well. And then finishing off with the sweetest portion of the dish, which is the date and pumpkin seed, which that would be your first thing that you taste, and then it's literally like a tower of flavor profile that you're going to be getting, with the last thing that you want to taste, in my opinion, is going to be the starch, which is why I put the fat on top of the starch. So it really just reduces the bland tasteness of starch, as I think that we should definitely reduce the amount of starch that we eat, but it's one of the biggest things that keeps us filled and full and feeling healthy, along with foliage. So everything's in chronological order, how it definitely should be, you know. So putting a little bit of dates on top. Actually, I'm gonna put a lot of dates on top. A lot of seeds on there as well. And this is what your finished product should more so consist of. Rice at the bottom, mushrooms under that, or on top of that. Your vegetable medley blend, your walnuts, extra on top of that, with coconut as well. Dates on top of there. And as stated, you can finish it off with any supplementation that you want, such as red pepper flakes, oregano, any dried herbs, any extra spices such as ginger, anything along those lines, and just finish it off. But it shouldn't need really anything, in my opinion. There's a lot of flavor that's been added to this. So enjoy, have fun. Caitlin, is there anything you wanted to say at the end?
Hey guys, check Facebook. Claire, check out. Are you still on Instagram? Stop it. Oh, okay. Look on Claire if you want the recipes, and Sally if you want the recipes. Look on Facebook, and it's on there. I just posted it on the Vital Source page. But that is it for me. Enjoy it. Post it. If you make it, post it. Let us know what you think. I love you guys. I'm stopping this, and I'm going to record it, or it's been recorded, but I'm going to post it on YouTube too. So if you guys are on a weekend and you have company coming over, if you're going to meal prep on Sundays, you guys can play this again and cook with Jake. Bye.